Welcome everyone back to #Lawyered with Austin and Andrea, and we have the most fun subject today: clothing and mannerisms and shoes and jewelry. Basically, keep it classy, not flashy in the courtroom, people. So we are breaking down today everything you need to know about when you are in the courtroom, whether it is for trial or if you're just there supporting your friend. And let's get into it. Good morning, Austin.
Good morning. Good morning. I think we're talking about a subject that you're more qualified to be an expert on than I am today.
No, really? I'm shocked.
Well, you and like anybody else that knows me, I pretty much wear the same thing all the time. So, you know, my courtroom dress code, my casual dress, it's kind of the same thing. So,
you know what? It's okay. When you find something that works, why break it, right?
Well, I didn't say it worked. It's what I wear. So I don't know. We'll leave that up for debate.
I don't give you the stank eye when you come in every morning. So
That's true.
Clearly it's working.
That's true. You haven't sent me home to go change to come back.
Which
to
I
the
would.
show.
I mean,
I
told
know
you
you would.
I told you to get that coffee cup off the table.
Exactly. No, I know you would tell me that. Exactly. But like you kind of said, it's more than just dress code when you go to the courtroom.
Absolutely.
But, you know, all these other subjects are really important.
Oh, 100%, right? Because when you walk into a courtroom, Austin, like you know, it's the start of the biggest story of your life if you're the client.
Right.
And then if you're the lawyer, I mean, it's just another day as being a lawyer. But no, we care. We care so much, guys.
But all these nonverbal messages of clothing, like you said, mannerisms. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of lawyers I talk to and a lot of clients, witnesses, a lot of their nervousness and anxiety from going to court comes with those little things. Like, where do I stand? When do I stand up? How do I address certain people? Mm-hmm. And you know, for people that are in the courtroom all the time, lawyers, we usually are comfortable with that because we're just, you know, it's a routine. But those little things can really go a long way with helping somebody feel a little more at ease when they're there.
Absolutely, 100%, right? Because it's this other language, it's this subtext to the courtroom, like how you're presenting yourself is the first strokes of how you're creating the story for the jury to see you and your story. And I think you're right, because so many people, the courtroom is a foreign, scary place.
Right.
And so one of the first things we think of is, what do we wear?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what do we wear?
Yeah.
And so, you know, speaking of that, let's just dive straight into the topic of what do you wear,
right?
You know, when you're walking into a courtroom.
And, you know, the funny thing is, I do appreciate a lot of clients assume that they should always wear, and from the men's perspective, they should always wear a suit, or women should always wear a pantsuit or some type of a very formal outfit. And actually, the good thing is, I think, that that's not necessarily the case with someone who's a non-lawyer.
Yes. And actually... let me tell you, right? So not everyone needs to look like Rachel from Suits. You've seen Suits, right?
Oh, yeah. Love that show.
I mean...
Why do you think I have my hair cut like this? I'm just trying to be a real-life Harvey Specter here.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to call you Harvey from now on.
Candidly. I have no shame admitting that, you know?
He's a great character. But anyway, Rachel has she's like the paralegal in Suits, love interest. I think she eventually becomes a lawyer. I haven't actually finished it.
Real life, she becomes a princess, you know.
Duchess, but you know.
Sorry, whatever.
Okay.
You get the point.
I mean, royalty, she marries a prince.
Right.
So exciting.
Right.
Anyway, so the message is, be a paralegal, marry a prince. No, I'm kidding. No, the message is that when we were watching Suits, right, everyone, Harvey Specter, Donna Paulson, Rachel, they all have these amazing clothes.
Right.
And it's like the perfect pencil skirt, the perfect boat neck top.
Tailored
to an inch of their life.
Right.
Especially Paula.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I keep saying Paula. Okay, that's her real name. I mean Donna.
And that's funny because I knew what you meant because I thought about the same thing.
Right there. I was like, hold on, the redhead, Donna.
Yeah.
Okay. But see, you know, and that's the thing, right? Is that everyone's like, oh no, if I'm going to court, I have to look like Rachel or Donna. And my first thought is, well, first of all, it depends who you are.
Yep.
Depends what you do. Depends what you're going to court for. And also, guys, have you seen some of Donna's outfits? Like, I mean, the necklines are like down to the floor sometimes.
Yeah.
You do not want to wear that to court.
Right.
Especially if you're in for, I don't know, like a prostitution charge or something.
Well, anything at all, because it's a distraction.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? I mean, we even talk about like lawyers not wearing a loud colored tie.
Right.
You're talking about a whole different ballgame when you're dealing with cleavage.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Spencer last night, and he's like, oh, you're talking about clothing in court? I'm like, yeah. And y'all, for those of you who don't know my husband, he's a very, like, classic dresser,
Right.
like, you know, right?
Right.
I like to joke that his mom taught him how to dress well in, like, a very classic all-American sense when he was young, and he has never strayed.
He stuck to it.
He's
like,
stuck
this is what
to
we're
it.
doing.
Yeah, and it works. It works for
Yeah.
him. And it also works in the courtroom, and he was telling me he got so serious. He's like, Andrea, yes, Spencer, I almost never wear a red tie to court. And I'm like, okay, here I am thinking like Donna's cleavage or like bodycon dresses or hooker heels. And here my husband's being like, I never wear a red tie. That's a big statement.
Well, and I'll share some of my opinions, here in a little bit when we get into specifics. But it's about your personality too.
Yeah.
But there are certain rules and things that, you can abide by and usually come out okay with.
Absolutely. But anyway, so, let's break down the clothing a little bit more. Austin, why don't you lead off with some ideas of if you are, and we'll just give it a hypothetical, right? You have a case and it's just a regular like breach of contract or a small business dispute and you're going to court and that's the context. What do you suggest that your male clients wear?
I usually tell my male clients to wear something that if it's a business owner, I usually ask them, what do you wear to work normally? And there's a lot of men that they wear jeans or they wear a golf shirt or something like that. And usually I tell them, wear what you wear, normally in the business setting if it's something like that.
Yeah.
Usually I'll tell them to wear some nice pants as opposed to
like
jeans.
Some slacks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But there's no need for them to put a suit on if they run a concrete construction company. It's just,
I have thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to appear, you don't want to look like you're someone you're not.
Exactly.
Like we're the lawyers, we have to wear the suits. Okay, got it. But if the concrete manufacturer shows up wearing a suit, it's going to be it's just going to be a little off. And I think also the guy's going to be, and I say guy because that's just what we're talking about with the male clients. I think that he's also going to be a little uncomfortable because he's probably not used to wearing a suit every day.
No, I'm sure he's not.
Right. So you want them to look like themselves, look nice,
yes,
but also feel comfortable when they're there, especially if they have to testify in front of the jury or talk in front of the judge. If you're worried about your clothing as opposed to what you're saying, well, then you're already behind the ball a little bit.
Yeah, you're already distracted. You're already not going to be putting on a good performance because, and y'all are going to be so sick of me saying this ad nauseum. When you're in the courtroom, it's a story.
It is.
Right?
It is.
You are telling a story and your client is the protagonist of your story. And I think that people they get so caught up in the details of what to say or what to wear that they forget that the whole point we're here is because of them and the opposing party or parties.
Right.
And that they're all characters in this big story that we're putting on for the jury. It's like a play.
It is. And I always say that too. I always agree with you because I like the way you phrase that because it really is. People, whether they want to admit it or not, it's not a bad thing. It's just you're telling a story. We are in a mini movie and we are all actors in this movie. Now, doesn't mean we're telling falsities or we're lying to the jury or anything like that. But you got to talk about it a certain way. You got to present it a certain way, and that starts with how do you dress? Are you dressing the part? Or are you acting like you're something that's in the wrong role?
Because if you're not dressing the part, and here is where I'm going to go into the hypothetical with the concrete manufacturer owner, right? If you're going, and I literally had a case that was about cracked concrete. It was the first case that I got over $500,000 for a client in, and it was all about cracked concrete.
Nice.
And it was. I didn't know you could. Anyway, it was a little ridiculous. I mean, anyway, represented the general contractor. The concrete that was poured got cracked. The owner of the facility was really upset. We went to court, and we're in Rockwall, right?
Nice.
And so
hometown.
There you go.
There we go.
I know. Holla, hometown. Right. And so he's like, well, what do I wear to court? And I'm like, well, first of all, not a neon yellow fishing shirt, which is, I'm pretty sure what he wore to work like every day.
I might have let him get away with that, but I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, but eventually, so we told him, go ahead. Like, what do you wear, like, if you're doing a meeting, right? And he's like, well, like you kind of said earlier, like jeans, boots, polo shirt. And I was like, okay, well, put on a coat, put on like a button-up shirt and some slacks or something like that, right? Maybe a polo shirt, I don't know, one of the two. Just don't wear jeans, but wear your boots, right? Because he's like, well, that's all I wear. I'm like, great, so wear your boots because that's something that you're comfortable in. It kind of speaks to the fact that you work in the construction industry and you're comfortable in it. And I mean, I don't know. Spencer was telling me last night, if you're in Tarrant County and you're a man, you sure as heck better have your like suit pants or whatever tailored to fit over your boots. And I was like, well, I mean, you know, only if you can pull it off, because if you're a poser, people are going to pick up on that. And he's like, well, of course, you know, don't be a poser.
I'll get on my boot spiel here in a minute.
There you go. But, you know, in Rockwall, right, you know, it's not Dallas County.
Right.
And so I thought the boots for him were appropriate there.
Yeah.
Funny thing is I actually wore boots, but they were like chunky little ankle boots.
Yeah.
And that was because I couldn't wear pumps for like the 6th day of trial in a row. My feet were hurting too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, you were going to say about the boots.
Well, so, I mean, that's the thing that people talk about a lot. I mean, for me personally, I don't wear dress shoes. I wear cowboy boots. That's just my personality. And going back on like what you were saying, that's just kind of who I am. And so whether I'm in court, whether I'm in jeans, I'm wearing cowboy boots. The funny thing is that there's a judge in Fannin County, and I don't recall her name, but she does not allow men to wear cowboy boots in her courtroom.
Which is funny because where is Fannin County located?
Well, it's kind of in a rural area, you know, outside of Denton and outside of Collin County, and so it's interesting that that's there because you kind of think, you know, I mean, you would expect that to be accepted there, but for whatever reason, doesn't allow it, not okay with it. You've got to be able to, like you said, focus on what you're doing and not focus on, well, these shoes don't fit, these are new, you know, it's just that you got too much of that going on. There's so much other things going on that you need to be aware of whenever you're in the courtroom, that if you're thinking about what you're wearing and you're uncomfortable, then we already got a problem.
Yeah, we already have a huge problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I know a lot of things that we deal with witnesses or with clients is things like, well, you want people to be comfortable, but at the same time, you also don't want them to send the wrong message depending on who you're talking to.
Absolutely.
So, for example, if I'm in court, there are certain watches or certain pieces of jewelry that I, as a male, won't wear because you don't want to send, well, you know, watches, rings, those kinds of things. You don't want to send the wrong message, right? And especially if you're in front of a jury, you don't want to send that wrong message. And I think that goes the same way with clients and witnesses, right?
Absolutely. And so I think it's really important, like, just for the absolute basics, right? If we're knocking it down to just the basics, the first thing that I'm going to tell someone, if whether or not that they're a client, you know, then maybe they're just a witness, a fact witness, right?
Right.
Because there are a lot of witnesses in these cases.
Right.
Anyway, you want to be comfortable, you want to be clean, you want to have neat clothing, right? So, like, you don't want to look like you just rolled out of bed and you have cat hair and wrinkles all over your outfit that day. And, you know, you don't want it to be, like you said earlier, distracting, because your audience that is literally judging you is the jury. And I'm just going to be so straightforward, and I am so sorry if this like offends someone. Sometimes trials can be, I love them. I love them a lot. I live for trial, but there are definitely parts of trial that can be really boring.
Right.
And I've literally had a juror fall asleep. Thankfully, it was the backup juror, the alternate, so it didn't really matter. But the judge had to be like,
I got to tell you a little aside then.
Okay.
I've had that happen numerous times.
Oh, have you really?
And if I
thought I was special over here.
No, you're not the only one that can put him to sleep.
I wasn't doing the putting to sleep. That was my senior partner at the time.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, apparently I was the one putting to sleep. So, you know, when you're at trial and, you know, usually you have to have someone sitting next to you in the second chair because you can't see everything that's going on.
100%.
And so I always, you know, my other lawyer with me is like, hey, look at juror number 6. She's dozing off. So anytime that happens, I figure out a reason to approach the witness, and I just kind of walk over and put my hand on the jury bar right there, and it kind of wakes them up a little bit. And then usually, I mean, I got to figure out some reason I'm talking to the witness up there, but I usually figure it out, but it just allows me to kind of jar them, and then they get embarrassed, and they kind of, okay, paying attention.
Oh, okay. I'm going to take notes now. I'm going to be the best juror ever.
Yeah, sorry, a little aside there, but
that's hilarious.
It's my little technique.
I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to borrow that because, I mean, with airplane crashes, let's be real, they are horrific tragedies, right? But when you're like 3 hours into like breaking down a Pratt and Whitney engine, so Pratt and Whitney, y'all are great, love you guys, but I mean, there's only so much attention you can give to nuts and bolts and like twisting bolts into place and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It gets a little dry.
Yeah, for sure. And so with these jurors getting bored, I mean, you don't want them to fixate on something that's not, you know, salient to the case. Right.
So what's something that they would fixate on? If you are a guy and you are, like my husband would never do, wearing a red tie, they might be like, the red tie.
Yeah.
Whoa, he's trying to send me a message. It's a political message. Maybe I'm not political. And then they just, because they're bored.
Yeah.
And so they go into all these like rampages of thought in their head at like, are they trying to send subtext? No, it's just that was what was clean and available that morning.
Yeah.
Right? But also, too, if you are a woman and you're sitting there, not only do you not want to distract the jury with clothing that's like maybe like Donna style, low cleavage, or like literally cut within an inch of your life, and it's like so tailored that like you're going to bust at the seams, because I have seen that.
Yeah.
And it's not a good look.
Right.
Not in the courtroom anyway. Do what you want at the club after COVID's over. But I think that a lot of women too kind of forget that maybe some women love big flashy bracelets or like chunky costume jewelry, or they have these beautiful pair of like big diamond earrings they got for an anniversary. That's all great and that's awesome. And maybe you have a favorite Chanel scarf that you wear everywhere.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's all going to distract the jury, right? Because they're going to be looking at the scarf and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like that's such a pretty scarf. I wonder where she got it from. And next thing you know, she's running through all these stores on like in her brain where she could find this scarf, and she's missed like half of what the witness is saying.
Yeah.
And that could actually be really important to your case.
Yeah.
And also, and this is, I hate to say this because I feel like I'm a girl's girl, but some women are just catty.
For sure. For sure. I think you got to be honest about that.
Yeah.
If you're going to have someone who's dressed to the nines, wearing the most fashionable clothing on the stand, and this is going to something I was about to jump into, is that we are judged by a jury of our peers.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of very wealthy people like in Dallas County, and they're in the top 0.5% of the income bracket or whatever.
Oh yeah.
They're not probably going to have a jury of 12 people that are in the same income bracket as them.
No.
And you're not going to be looked at the same way. If you're showing up, you're going to look entitled, all those types of things. I had a family law case that I'm thinking of right now where we represented the father and we had a jury, Dallas County jury, and he was very well off, but he was very, very cutting edge, fashion forward guy. Sure. Really liked to wear loud blazers, that kind of stuff. Totally fine, for his business he was in, it worked, all that kind of stuff.
Great, fun.
But we had to talk about, you need to tone it down, be conservative, because these people are not going to be able to identify with you if you look like somebody they see on TV or something like that. And if they think that, then if they can't identify with you, they're not going to side for you. And they're also, like you said, going to be distracted thinking about, well, this guy, he doesn't really get it. He's not an in-tune father. He's concerned about himself because he's wearing these clothes and he carries on. And he's a big boisterous speaker and all this kind of stuff. So you got to think about that, because you're going to have women that judge other women on the stand for what they wear, and you're going to have just humans in general thinking the wrong things. Maybe you're getting the wrong impression about the witness that's on the stand if you get the wrong clothing up there.
Absolutely. And even the wrong jewelry too, right? Because who doesn't love a good, Cartier love bracelet or, the matching ring to go with it.
Sure.
But we'll pretend you know what I'm talking about. But, some women, I'm not obviously wearing one, but they'll have a stack. Like one of my favorite influencers has a stack of Cartier love bracelets. I'm not kidding. It goes from my wrist up to the tip of my blazer. And I'm like, okay, but I have followed this particular influencer for long enough and known that actually she has purchased every single one of those bracelets for herself, and they weren't from her husband, they weren't whatever, she was very proud of that fact, because she's like, to me, this is a hallmark of, creating my small business and the small business getting bigger. Anyway, so on and so forth. Great for her. It fits her personality. But I'm just saying, if she was coming here and she was coming to court, she might hate me for saying this, but I would say, I would take the bracelets off. Yeah. Because I know that's you. But there are some women who just hate on other women and for their success. And they're going to look at all those bracelets and be like, oh, no, she didn't work hard for those bracelets. She maybe is working hard for her husband or for her boyfriend in the bedroom, for those bracelets. Yeah. Instead of what the real story is, this woman is out here hustling, finding the best product and creating really good products to sell, and they're not anything bad. That she's earned those bracelets herself, actually working hard. But it can send the wrong message.
Yeah, there's a difference when you're looking at her from an Instagram influencer page, and there's a storyline behind that versus her on the witness stand talking about witnessing a crime or being a character witness for somebody else. You don't have time to go back and explain all the backstory to make the jury understand why she's wearing those bracelets and why it's okay. So just just get rid of them
so
for this moment.
Take away the distraction,
Yeah.
right? You know, you don't want all that clinking going
Yeah.
on because then it's very noticeable. I mean, you can't miss those bracelets, right? Same thing with huge earrings, right? If you're wearing these huge hoop earrings, they look great on some women, right?
Right.
But maybe another woman's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe she's wearing these huge hoop earrings. That is so fall 2019. I cannot. Like, oh my gosh, right? And
Yeah.
so this, and I kid you not, this actually goes through some women's heads. And like,
I believe you.
yeah, I've had friends tell me this, and I'm like, guys, you really need to calm down on the earrings. Like, it's fine.
Well, and you know, this is why we have these conversations with I know you and I both have talked about this. We have to have these conversations with our clients. And early in my career, I didn't do that as much. And I learned you kind of have to have this conversation because like we talked about at the beginning of the show, it's not something that everybody understands, and it's not something it's something that we do take for granted. You know, and I had plenty of times where I didn't have this conversation, and my clients would show up in like camo cargo shorts to court, which if you don't know, you're not allowed to wear shorts in the courtroom.
Yeah, actually, there are literally, I think we should probably have led with that. My bad, y'all. There are actual like rules, guys, about what you can and can't wear into a courtroom, and they're very basic rules. It's not like you have to wear a ball gown or anything, but you're not allowed to wear shorts. You're not allowed to wear t-shirts with profanity on them. You're not allowed to have like midriff showing.
Yeah. No hats.
No hats. Yeah, no hats in the courtroom. I've literally, more times than I can count, actually, I've been waiting, to have my docket called, and the bailiff will have actually pointed someone out who's like waiting in the gallery and be like, sir, you need to take your cap off.
Right.
And then if you don't, well, then you're escorted out.
Yeah. I mean, and that's actually one of the other examples I had. All political views aside, I mean, people showing up wearing "Make America Great Again" hats.
Yeah, don't.
I'm like, you don't know what the judge's political affiliation is. Don't do that.
Yeah, I know they're supposed to like not care about politics, but they are elected parties, and they're humans.
You're humans. But the skin tight dresses, we talked about that earlier, where a woman shows up, and I'm like, I don't know how to say this, but you probably shouldn't have worn that.
Yeah.
But I will say that the funniest thing, the thing that surprised me the most, is that I had 3 clients early in my career that I didn't coach them up, and in hindsight, like the morning of when I showed up to court, I was like, oh geez, I probably should have said something.
I love this story. You should probably tell what their occupation
was.
was.
No, don't take my punchline away. But the thing was that these clients, they all had the similar drug possession charge 3 different times. They were all referred to me by business clients of mine. They all paid me in cash. And they were strippers. And the craziest thing was they were the most professionally dressed, most well put together clients that I had in that 2015, 2016 stretch that I'm talking about.
Which is insane. And they kept it classy, not flashy, right?
Classy,
with the jewelry.
not flashy. Yeah. I mean, they showed up looking like they were Ally McBeal or some of these. It's an old lawyer show in the 90s. Jeez, come on. So let me use a different reference. They showed up. I mean, they showed up looking like they were the lawyers ready to go to court.
Awesome.
Which, again, totally surprised me because there's a stereotype,
Yeah.
And all 3 of these women were very nice women, great clients of mine, and we ended up getting good results for them. But it was impressive to me that they knew more about how they should dress versus some of my some of my more white collar guys that got accused of crimes and show up wearing camo shorts to their plea hearing. And it's funny how that stuff kind of works. And I learned from that one, don't stereotype. That's one thing.
That is a big one.
But 2, you can't take that for granted. And that's part of the reason we're talking about the dress code here.
Absolutely.
Today.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, to swap stories with you, like let's pretend I'm on a porch sipping tea, right? No. Anyway, but I do have one story, and she's to this day, she is one of my, if not my absolute favorite client, and she's such a sweetheart. But it was a case where she needed to be able to connect with the jury. It was an emotional situation, and a big part of the fact scenario was that the man that she believed was her husband, right, because it was a common law marriage case, had recently passed, and there was an issue with the will. So we're in probate court in Dallas County, and, this client, so sweet, so kind, but she was very stylish. She knew how to dress well, and her daughters are all extremely stylish, right? And normally that's great. That's a huge compliment. Except when you're going to court and people who very well could be coming from a very different socioeconomic background than her could look at her in her like beautiful outfit that like looks like she could be on the cover of Vogue in the best way possible. Like, I mean, I love how she dresses. And they could be like, oh my gosh, this white, rich lady, I can't connect with her. Like, and then just engage in catty behavior.
Yeah. And she's just trying to get more money out of this will
exactly.
in this probate case.
When really she's not. She's just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so it would have horribly damaged her case. So the amount of time that the jury consultant and I spent with this client, because she was so petrified, the poor thing, she was petrified of wearing the wrong thing and sending the wrong message.
Right.
So we literally had to go shopping for like a court wardrobe for her. The jury consultant went with her. I didn't get to go, unfortunately, because I was briefing. So sexy, right? You know,
right.
Yay briefs. But, you know, so she wound up going to like Ann Taylor and just buying like very conservative, like navy blue cardigans and just like a white blouse and like navy blue pencil skirt, just, you know, or like a plain shift dress that was clean, neat, presentable, all dark, muted colors. And she looked great and she played the part. And at the end of the trial, when we were speaking with the jurors, right, after the results had come in, the jurors loved her so much. And they connected with her so much. And the jurors that hadn't found for her, one of them was literally crying because they're like, we wanted to find for your client so much. And we connected with her. We thought she was such an amazing person, but, you know, whatever their reason.
Yeah.
But to me, that spoke volumes that my client had portrayed herself so well and she had connected so well with the jury. And I was like, honestly, probably a large part of that is because you were dressing in clothing that is very like, an accessible style, you know, just like a cardigan and shift dress and flats or something like that.
Well, you guys played a major role in helping her connect by taking down some of the barriers and the obstacles maybe that could have kept the jury from connecting with her. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and this doesn't apply to everyone, right? Yeah. One of her witnesses is a very good friend of hers, and she is fabulously wealthy and just fabulous. Her style. She literally has a bodyguard that has to follow her because her engagement ring is so large. Yeah.
Problems we don't have right now.
Problems I do not have. I know. But for some reason, and to this day, I don't really understand, but that witness, even though she's so fabulous and has to have the bodyguard, she's able to connect with the jury. Mm-hmm. And she's one of the few people where she can dress like she is on the cover of Vogue and it looks great on her and still come across as this like trustworthy, kind, compassionate person. Which I think just goes back to our original point, right? Is that you have to do what works for you and you have to do what supports your story.
Yeah.
Because everyone knew this witness. They all knew who she was. Mm-hmm. And it would have looked really ridiculous for her to have shown up in, like, the court clothes that I had picked out for my client.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows with that ring, like, oh, honey, no.
Right.
You're not shopping at Ann Taylor, which I do. I like Ann Taylor, so.
Now, I want to hear about this flats and heels opinion.
Okay. Austin, have you seen the movie Bling Ring?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have a movie night, and I'm going to make you and Spencer watch it.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. It's great. Anyway, so millennials probably maybe remember the movie Bling Ring, which is based on the article called, I think it was published in Vanity Fair, called The Criminals Wore Louboutins. And it's all about this group of, like, you know, rich kids in, like, Calabasas or something, or Indian Wells in the movie. And they went around breaking into celebrities' houses like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, stealing their stuff, selling it. Eventually they get caught, and one of the characters gets caught. And then when she is, you know, going to court and then doing an interview, she's so worried about what shoes to wear. And so she's freaking out. And she's like, where are my kitten heels? Where are my kitten heels? And kitten heels are itty bitty heels, like an inch or less. Because I know you don't know that.
Thank you.
Right? And so there's this scene in, like, the reality show Pretty Wild that is, like, actually based on the real life member of this Bling Ring, mm-hmm. where she gave the interview. And in the interview, the author said that she wore, like, 5 or 6 inch Louboutin heels or something to court, which, I mean, that's not something I would advise.
Right.
And the girl is hysterical when she reads this article. And she's screaming at her mother. She's like, but I didn't wear 6 inch Louboutins. I wore brown BB kitten heels. I can't believe she got that wrong. And it made such a difference to her. And honestly, it probably would make a huge difference to the jury.
Yeah. I mean, if they see the shoes, the flashiness of them. I mean, those are for the men out there listening to this podcast, those are expensive heels.
Very expensive heels. They probably would have thought, oh, I know how you got those heels. You stole them from Lindsay Lohan.
Right. So yeah, no, it makes a big difference. You know, I mean, men got to be careful with wearing flashy shoes. Just like the watch for the male is a big thing. You know, wearing a real flashy, really expensive looking watch in front of a jury, it's not the best idea in the world. I tend to wear, like I said, I wear different jewelry, different clothing when I'm in front of a jury versus just being in front of the judge. So, you know, the clothing is the first thing that everybody sees when they walk in. But I will say one of the big things that I hear, and this is with new lawyers and with witnesses, is just the nuances of what do I say to the judge? What are the little verbal cues? Where do I stand? When do I walk? Yeah, all those types of things. So let's jump into that a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, so first, and this is so important for you non-lawyers, the judge is always your honor. Nothing else. Not, and I've heard all of these, your highness. That actually happened.
Yeah.
I almost melted into the floor because it was my client. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, your client said your highness?
Yeah, to the judge. And I was like, well, I mean, could be worse.
Well, so I'll tell you something. There was this lawyer in Lubbock that I went to school at Texas Tech, interned at the DA's office down there. There was a lawyer when the judge would rule on an objection, he wouldn't say your highness, but he'd say, thank you, your honor. And then he would stage bow, do his little hand roll, and then bow down and come back up.
What?
Like first time he did it, you kind of, okay, that's strange. Maybe there's an inside joke here. Second time, you're thinking, all right, something's off. Third time, you're like, well, what's happening in a world right now? Like, what's going on?
This is so strange. I feel like I'm about to get punked, you know?
It was weird. The judge didn't know how to react. I think the judge, she just kind of was like, all right, I guess I got to move past this. Like, whatever, this guy's going to be weird.
That is so strange.
Very strange.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well.
Now I will say. I mean, he said Your Honor, so that you got that part.
So that is correct.
The stage bow was weird. Now, so what do you think about clients saying yes sir, yes ma'am? Because I have my clients do that a lot, and I'm okay with that because it's, you know, they're still being respectful.
Yeah, I would advise against it, but if it's just something that naturally comes to your client, because I mean, I know some people are raised to say yes sir, yes ma'am, and if that's just how you speak, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But I would never be like, ma'am, to the judge, or like, ma'am, and start the conversation that way.
Yeah.
Also, you shouldn't really be speaking to the judge. You're the client, not the lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you're saying. I usually, if that's their natural way, I kind of let them go because I don't want them focused too much on the Your Honor part. And, you know, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Also, last thing, then we'll move on. But, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I don't like it when people call the judge. I mean, it's one thing to like say, well, like when you're addressing the judge, I'm like, you know, it's Your Honor. Like, they're a judge.
Yeah.
Like, you call them Your Honor. Like, I don't understand how it just sounds very informal to me, and the court is a formal setting.
Yeah.
And I know some judges are much more relaxed about decorum in like a good way.
Yeah, it's just their style.
Right. It works for them.
Right.
And so they have a little bit more of an easy conversational flow in their courtroom instead of like federal court, which is, my gosh, it's like, are there like knights and guards outside? Like, this is so formal.
Right.
So I like to say Your Honor. I don't like to say judge this or that unless like, you know, it's the judge I clerked for and we're having a conversation at a networking event. And I'll be like, you know, Judge Hoffman, how are you doing today? How's your wife doing? So on and so forth.
Yeah.
But in court, it's Your Honor.
Right.
Well, that's me. I mean, everybody's different.
Like I said, everybody's got their own style. I think you got to read the room. I think that one of the points that you bring up here that it should go without saying.
Yes.
But probably shouldn't curse in court.
Right? Y'all, we're in Texas, so there's that. But really, just don't curse. Like, I had a sorority sister, and bless her, you know, great girl. But she was from New Hampshire, and her favorite adjective was the F-bomb. And it was like, you know, every other word. And I was like, okay, you know, you just eventually tune it out, right? You can't do that in the courtroom. Like, you'll get escorted out by the bailiff.
Yeah, I mean,
so quick.
I've cursed a lot in court, but it's because I'm reading something or it's coming from like an exhibit, and
Sure.
it feels weird when you do it because you're here, you know. But
You're like, oh gosh.
but that's the only reason I'm reading something. Someone else texted in a message, so it's
And you can't
situation.
compromise the evidence. Like,
Yeah,
if you're reading
yeah.
the text messages and they're like,
Well, you lose the effect.
well, that too. Okay, let's be real.
Now, who's the bailiff? Because that's something that
Right.
that people are confused as to what they need to do or how the bailiff plays a role in all this.
Yeah, so when you, oh my gosh, guys, frogs. So when you walk into the courtroom, there's usually going to be at least 3 people when you walk in. So you walk in, there's going to be the bar, right? So it's literally like this wooden bar that separates the gallery from the well of the courtroom. And then across the well of the courtroom, so that's going to be like your big open space. You're going to have counsel table right in front of the bar, the well, and then you're going to have like the podium where the judge is sitting. And then depending on the courtroom, in Dallas County, we have the bailiff and the court reporter sitting next to the judge. Now, the bailiff is pretty easily identifiable because, in my experience, they're always a police officer.
Right. Usually work for the sheriff's department as a deputy. But yeah, they're wearing a police uniform.
Yeah.
Standard, with gun and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, they have a gun.
Hopefully they're the only person in the courtroom with a gun.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, so that is the bailiff. They are a police officer, so you can address them as officer, and their role in the courtroom, right, is to like help keep the order if someone is dropping F-bombs left and right, or to refuse to take their hat off, or, God forbid, actually threatens someone. Then the bailiff will escort them out of the courtroom.
And usually I tell people that if I'm not representing them, if they've got a question, because this happens a lot in criminal court when you've got a bunch of people who maybe don't have lawyers.
Yeah.
And they grab a lawyer like myself walking around and say, hey, I need,
Wait, that actually happens?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Well, no, they're like, hey, I don't know where to go. Like, help me out. That's what I mean. They're like, hey, I don't know where to go. I don't know. What am I supposed to do?
Oh, I've gotten that.
Yeah. I always direct them to the bailiff. Because that's what I want our listeners to understand is if you don't know what's going on, if you don't have a lawyer with you or whatever, go talk to the bailiff. Because the bailiff's going to be able to help you know, okay, this is the right courtroom. This is the wrong courtroom. You need to go do this. And if you're respectful to them, they're usually really helpful, really nice.
Yeah.
And they'll get you where you need to go. And they're kind of the director and the tour guide, so to speak, at the courthouse.
No, and that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
so
because it helps. And that's actually another good point is that if you don't know what's going on, you see somebody in a suit walking around, ask them. Most of the time, we're going to be helpful and tell you, like, I mean, they're probably going to tell you to go talk to the bailiff, like I just said. But at least, you don't have to be scared to go talk to a lawyer. We're in the courthouse. We usually know what's going on.
Yeah.
We should know a little bit better than what everybody else knows.
Although give us a few days after we get back once Corona's over. We need to get used to the courthouse.
Right.
Okay, now, Austin, tell us about the court reporter.
So the court reporter's taking down everything you say. And
Literally
everything you say. And it's actually the scene in Liar, Liar, one of my favorite lawyer movies, where the judge comes in and they're like, the Honorable Judge Harris presiding, and Jim Carrey goes, honorable. The court reporter looks up and he's like, no, don't take that down. Don't take that down. But they're taking She's supposed to, right. They're taking down everything you say, and so that's the reason, and I won't go into all the boring things we say in depositions, but you can't say, you can't shake your head yes or no. You got to give verbal answers. And here's another important thing about mannerisms and decorum. When the judge is talking, you stop talking.
That is so critical, and I'm really glad you brought that up.
And when someone else is talking, when a lawyer objects, you stop talking. You got to go one at a time. One for the court reporter, but also if you don't, it becomes mass chaos. And candidly, as a witness, if you're in the middle of mass chaos, the lawyers are probably more comfortable than you are, and you're putting yourself in a bad role if you're trying to talk over somebody and argue and do all those things. And so I always coach my witnesses, hey, take a deep breath. If someone else starts talking, just stop. Trust me, someone will tell you when to start talking again. You'll be fine.
Yes, you're there to talk, so we will prompt you. We know.
Yeah, and I see so many lawyers that will try to talk over the judge. I never understand it.
That blows my mind.
For sure. I mean, and we've had, in a much more informal setting like we have here, we've had guests. Sometimes we all get to start talking, know, but like it's trained in your mind. When the judge starts talking, you just stop.
Mid-sentence, if need be.
Yeah, and if he or she wants you to start talking again, she'll tell you. And if she doesn't, she'll tell you. Like, it's fine, but you got to have that trigger point. I don't understand when lawyers don't have it. I get it when clients that have never been in front of a judge have it. When they do it, never understand how lawyers mess that up. It's so basic.
I don't know. It really does blow my mind. And the other thing, speaking about that, is I have had a client before who, how to put this nicely, would always seem to be talking to me while the judge was talking to the lawyers or to me specifically.
Yeah.
Because I had made an objection and I was explaining the objection, and the client, who we eventually wound up not representing because of a lot of issues that came up in her personal life, but she would literally be trying to tell me how to object, and she's like, oh, well, you also need to say this and that, and he's such a liar on the other side, and I'm over here, I'm trying to explain my objections, which is like a very legalistic process.
Yeah.
Hearsay is not just hearsay. You sometimes have to explain what the hearsay is or what the exception to hearsay.
Right.
And not only is it distracting for me, because I'm trying to preserve the record, right? Because it's all the appellate court gets is like literally the transcript of what everything was said and then the exhibits that are put onto the record. The judge is staring at the client, and after probably a good 5 or 7 seconds, she was like, Miss So-and-so, you need to stop talking to your lawyer when I am talking to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, this happened 3 more times. And then she started crying in the courtroom.
Sorry.
And she was escorted out by the bailiff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. See, my team knows I don't let the client sit next to me at the table.
Oh, you don't?
I make my lawyer sit next to me and one of my teammates, and then they get to sit on the other side. I'm like, you want to tell me something, you write it down. You're not talking to me during this
And let's talk about that, because, so what do you do, right? When your client, if you're in trial and your client really wants to say something to you, obviously they should not be speaking to you. They should write it down.
Right.
Right. So I normally will have a paralegal bring a stack of note cards or the big sticky notes.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a pen that doesn't click. It's like a takeoff.
Right.
And they can write down their note and pass it to me.
Right.
I mean, do you do something similar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing. I'll put a notepad out there. Because honestly, though, what I do is if I'm talking, that's how we set it up. If one of my teammates is talking, I have to be the barrier, fall on the sword. But the thing is that I let the client write the note down, and then whoever's in the middle, they get to be the barrier of do I give it to the lawyer that's talking, or do I keep it over here because this doesn't matter?
That's smart. I'm going to copy that, because I had a client once and she was so invested in her case and she had great heart, really wanted to do the right thing. But my gosh, she was probably 90% of the trial furiously writing notes to me on a note card. And she was pushing, she was stressed. So she's pushing really hard on the table, and I'm I think I hear the table creaking from this.
Break the pen as you're
right, and she never broke a pen.
Yeah.
She's not that strong, but
right.
But she was shoving these notes and elbowing me or elbowing my senior partner, and I was like, "Ma'am," we finally had to tell her, we're "Hey, the jury is watching, and right now you're not giving a show of confidence when you do that.
Yeah.
So if you want to pass this note, that's great, but calmly and quietly pass us the note, please."
Well, and that actually brings up a great point of something that we talked about, which is your decorum at the table when you're sitting there. I mean, honestly, it's pretty short and simple. Mm-hmm. They're watching, the jury's watching you the whole time, the judge is watching you the whole time. If you're making facial expressions, if you're you're reacting to it, if you're furiously writing notes, all of that is in the eye of the fact finder, the jury or the judge, and they're seeing that. And so you've got to understand that you're on display the whole time, and you got to act accordingly.
Absolutely.
And there's no secret. I mean, it's not a big secret thing. Just don't go crazy over there. Just sit there.
Don't be nuts.
Be respectful. Don't fall asleep.
Don't roll your eyes.
Had a client fall asleep one time
during
her DWI trial.
What?
I had to tell my lawyer, "Hey, would you nudge her? Get her awake. Jury sees that."
Oh my God.
I mean, to her, the lights were off and the video was showing, and she'd already seen this video because she had acted in the video. She was the one getting the field sobriety test.
Yes.
So she'd already seen the ending of this one. So, but I was like, it's not a good look.
No, it's not a good look to fall asleep to your own trial.
So, and there's just understand that people are looking at you and act accordingly.
Yeah. Act accordingly, and just remember, it's a show, right? The lawyers and the client have worked so hard to create this narrative, right? And at the end of the day, I know some people don't like hearing this, but it's all just one big story.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for this, but it's not necessarily that the truth wins in a courtroom.
Yeah.
It's who tells the best story.
Yeah.
And if you want a good story, you need to play your part. You need to be your character, live and breathe the character that your lawyers have created, which should be easy because it's basically you, but with a twist.
Yeah.
The best part of you. And just be mindful that the jury is always watching. So whatever you do, be your character and support the story that your lawyers are telling.
Yeah.
Because they see everything, man. They see everything.
Well, and I think what you just said is the biggest takeaway from today is you gotta whoever tells the best story wins, and so you've got to fulfill that role, like you said, and all those things that you do. And the other thing I think I want our listeners to make sure they take away today is we've given you some good facts, but you should ask your lawyer to clarify these things. Don't hesitate to ask your lawyer, what should I wear? How should I act? And they should be coaching you on that anyways. But if they're not, sometimes whatever, they don't think about it. Ask those questions. You need to feel as comfortable as you can when you walk into that situation, because the more prepared you are about the little things, the better off you're going to perform once you get into that storyline.
Absolutely, 100%. And don't ever feel bad for asking, right? I mean, I would want my client to ask me.
Right.
Because I'm trying to do good by you, right? And I want you to help me to help you.
Exactly.
All right, Austin, any final words of wisdom?
No, I think that covers it all. I mean, make sure that you play the role that you were casted for.
Oh, I love that. Play the role you were casted for. And on that note, tune in next time. Bye, y'all.
Thank you guys again for listening to us here on #Lawyered. Go find us on whatever platform it is that you listen to your podcasts. Go like the podcast, go follow and subscribe to us. Leave us a review, leave us a rating. That helps us to really get the word out and really continue to tell you guys about all the different things that are going on in law and business here in Dallas. Make sure you check out our videos on our YouTube channel. It's #Lawyered. And then also follow us on our Instagram account. It's @#Lawyered. DM us, send us some issues, some topics you'd like to discuss, or some things that maybe you just don't understand about the law, because we want to make sure and cover and give you what it is you want to listen to.
Hey y'all, don't go. Breaking news. As of or around September 22nd, 2020, Vanessa Bryant, the widow of Kobe Bryant, the basketball legend who died in the helicopter crash along with his daughter and several of her teammates and their family members, went ahead and sued the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for leaking crash site photos of her daughter and her husband after they had passed as a result of the accident. And in this lawsuit, Vanessa Bryant is seeking damages for negligence, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. So stay tuned and we'll see what's going to happen as this story with Vanessa Bryant unfolds.